Welcome back, everyone. I am absolutely pumped to bring you today's explainer. We're diving deep into some seriously fascinating source material from the office drama stories universe today. Now, if you love a good corporate thriller, the kind that hinges not on massive explosions, but on the nail-biting tension of a perfectly placed paper trail, you are in for a real treat. Today, we're unpacking a story that revolves around something that sounds, well, completely mundane: an external audit checklist. But as we're going to see, the most dangerous documents rarely look dangerous at first glance, right? Actually, they usually look incredibly boring, and this seemingly boring document acts as the spark that ignites an entire sequence of corporate truth-seeking. So, grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. To set the stage, the company in our source material just went through this massive, sweeping cultural overhaul. They implemented something called the Memory Charter, which was this new system designed to prioritize the official record and transparency over, toxic office politics. Basically, everyone wants to believe the culture is fixed. They're desperate for a clean slate. But then, on a quiet, blue-gray morning, an external auditor's checklist arrives, and it's stripped down to a single, hyper-precise question. Can an ordinary employee see what happened after they speak up? I mean, it's a simple yes or no, but it instantly shatters the whole illusion of that perfectly healed company culture. It just sends this immediate ripple of panic straight through the leadership team.
And that's sudden panic? Well, that brings us right to the primary obfuscation tactic used by the executives, specifically led by Transformation Officer Adrian Vail. It's called governance minimalism. It's a brilliantly insidious corporate strategy. Basically, it's where a company meets compliance requirements on paper, sure, but completely avoids granting any actual transparency or detailed visibility to the ordinary employees. Adrian argues that the new system is totally fine because, technically, it meets all the high-level governance requirements. But the catch? They use this highly polished language and the excuse of efficiency to bury the detailed truth. It's essentially an erasure of accountability, just disguised as a streamlined process. The whole system looks fantastic to a board of directors, but it remains a total black box to the people actually working there day in and day out.
To really wrap our heads around how this plays out, we have to look at two totally different realities. First up, you have the official narrative. This is that soft, polished corporate jargon being projected in those sleek glass conference rooms. We're talking words like alignment, healing, and fresh start. But contrasting that is the background record. This is the hard, gritty, physical reality of the workplace. Unread emails, missing signatures, muted notifications, and secretly modified document routes. The executives desperately want everyone focusing on the soft, comforting words of the official narrative, but the actual truth of the company's culture? That lives entirely in the concealed digital footprints of the background record.
Enter Sophia Lane. She's a brand new operations coordinator, and she actually has a distinct advantage here. She is literally so new that she hasn't yet learned which questions are considered, inconvenient. While all the experienced executives are trying to just breeze past the fine print, waving it away as standard procedure, Sophia actually stops and reads it, and she innocently asks 3 exact questions. Who changed it? When did it change? And who approved the change? Now, the room desperately wants to avoid these questions because unlike those broad, fluffy concepts of healing, these specific questions require actual names and exact timestamps. There's nowhere to hide.
Let's see how this builds, because this is where strategy lead Maya Carter steps in. Maya knows a fundamental truth. People deny, but systems merely hesitate. So instead of getting dragged into some emotional, subjective shouting match with the executives, she uses pure procedural brilliance to build what she calls a proof map. By identifying the object, tracking the owner, verifying the timestamp, finding the beneficiary, and finally, flagging missing approvals, she creates a completely objective, systematic way to map out the exact sequence of deceit. It's brilliant. Maya isn't chasing people around, she's strictly following the system to give their vague fears a very tangible, undeniable shape.
Of course, the old guard isn't going to just roll over without a fight. Adrian Vail attempts to pull Sophia aside in the hallway. Because, let's be real, in toxic offices, pressure rarely announces itself as a threat. Instead, Adrian tries to frame it as gentle, well-meaning career advice. He warns Sophia not to turn every tiny inconsistency into a massive crisis, heavily implying that she's the one damaging the company's fragile new peace. But Maya? She completely shuts down this toxic framing with an absolute powerhouse statement. She says, "Truth is not damage. Hiding it was." Boom. It just completely reorients the moral compass of the entire conversation, right back to the actual facts.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how Maya's team builds their indisputable case. Because this isn't just one person's word against another anymore. The executive assistant Nina and the IT auditor Jordan combine their forces to look at everyday, boring administrative tasks. Nina and Jordan know that invisible background work always generates foreground records, so they compile an undeniable timeline of evidence. On day 1, a calendar is exported. Day 2, a room is booked. Day 3, a draft is printed. And on day 4, the raw IT logs are explicitly altered. The executives treated all these background tasks as completely invisible, but strung together, they form an absolutely unbreakable chain of evidence.
Jordan, the IT audit specialist, brings just a completely fantastic perspective to all this. When the executives try to backpedal and say that data logs need interpretation, which, let's face it, is just a sneaky way of trying to spin the narrative, Jordan shuts it down immediately. He makes it crystal clear that this isn't suspicion, it is sequence. Uncovering the truth here doesn't require some cinematic Hollywood-style hacking montage. It simply requires projecting raw data exports on a screen to remove any subjective interpretation whatsoever. Somebody logged in, somebody changed a field. It's just a mathematical sequence, plain and simple.
With that sequence locked in, Aisha, the analyst, delivers the absolute killing blow to the executive's evasion tactics by asking this brilliant question. Who benefits if this stays classified as a harmless error? You see, the whole room was desperately trying to manage feelings and optics. They really wanted to just shrug it off as a glitch or a minor misunderstanding. But Aisha's question forces everyone to stop looking at the fog and start looking at the hard facts. It directly corners the executives because to answer this question, you have to attach a specific person's name to the cover-up. There's no wiggling out of it.
So the crucial point is this number right here, 3. This is the massive climactic reveal of the source material. Using that proof map and the timeline they built, Sophia successfully proves that there are 3 recent active cases where the company's supposedly transparent new system still required private backdoor access to prove public claims. 3 distinct instances where governance minimalism was intentionally used to hide the truth from the very employees the system was supposed to protect. The evidence is now completely undeniable. They have them dead to rights.
So predictably, this leads to the formal review meeting, which immediately devolves into pure corporate theater. Adrian Vale's allies scramble to save themselves. They start softening their verbs, renaming their choices, and pleading with everyone to think about the optics. They basically try to conflate protecting the executives' jobs with protecting the company itself. But Maya? She displaces the proof map right beside their official explanations, making their excuses literally impossible. And then she drops this truth bomb on the room. We can protect the company without protecting the lie. She systematically uses the documentation to separate the health of the institution from the deceit of the executives.
The executives, cornered, offer a quiet settlement, a private little fix behind closed doors to make it all go away. But Maya absolutely refuses, demanding true systemic repair. Because this is what real justice looks like in this scenario. It requires refusing those private HR fixes that just leave future employees exposed. Instead, they force the company to write visible, permanent controls into the workflow itself. They do this by creating employee-facing timelines, implementing privacy-safe milestones, and maintaining highly visible evidence custody notes. They ensure that these corrective steps outlive the meeting and leave permanent, unerasable footprints in the system.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it captures the core thesis of our entire explainer today. It highlights the profound, massive difference between performative compliance and true, deep accountability. Honestly, if you take away anything from today, let it be this concept. A system that only leaders can see and audit is just governance minimalism at work. A truly mature, transparent workplace system is one where the everyday employee can plainly see and understand exactly how that system stepped in to protect them. It's about visible protection, not hidden compliance.
Which leaves us with this final, kind of provocative thought. Sophia closes her notebook, having successfully named the truth. But she knows this isn't some perfect happily ever after victory. The next challenge is already waiting in the next file. However, the next lie, it's going to be infinitely harder to hide because this one was so systematically dismantled. So I want to leave you with a question to ponder. If someone applied Maya's proof map to your workplace today, what would the next file reveal? Think about the true maturity of your own systems. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking those useful questions, and I will see you next time.